I think. There we are. Wonderful. Well, I promise you this morning that this is not an advertisement for a gravestone company or anything like that. When we talk the blessing of burial, there is going to be a couple types of burial you're going to see this morning in Genesis chapter 35. There is a literal yet metaphorical burial you see. And then there is a very literal burial that you're going to see as well that would be a very hard thing for any of us to encounter. And in all of it, I want you to see this morning that there is a blessing to be had for the people of God, as there was for Jacob. So we'll look at this metaphorical burial, and we'll look at this literal burial, and we'll put these things together and see how it is that the Lord would have us reckon the death of certain things, right? Death is something we look at as a bad thing, right? It's an intrusion into a world that God has made as good. It is a fallen world now because of sin, and yet there is something good that can come from death, all right? Death is not good, but there is something good that can come from it, especially the types of deaths that we'll be talking about this morning. So the blessing of burial, Genesis 35, there's quite a bit that we're going to be reviewing here because we will kind of take a little skating over the ice rink of the end of 33 and chapter 34, which has an episode in the life of Jacob's children, Israel's children. That is a rather, striking episode. It's very, very difficult to consider if you were in this situation that Jacob finds himself in, and the sons of Jacob, what you might do. So we'll touch on that briefly, but I do want you to see, especially in chapter 35, this is kind of this continuation that we saw when we had last week looking at the hip, right, where the Lord touches the hip of Jacob, says, your name will be Israel because you have wrestled with God. And so a name change occurs, and we will see how that name change continues to play out, which is the best thing in Jacob's life, is he has this change in disposition, change in demeanor, change in direction from the life that he lived as a young man. So chapter 35 is where we're going to be spending most of the time. If you want to be synopsisizing chapter 35 in your mind, you'll see that this morning, but we will touch on 33 and 34 as well. So to kick us off, chapter 35, verse 1, this is where we find Jacob at this stretch in his life. And to be clear, after this week, we'll probably spend a little bit more time on Jacob, but then we're going to have Joseph for quite a while. All right, and I love Joseph. Love Joseph as a character, as a man unique in the Old Testament, as somebody who does not have much spoken of him by way of any kind of negative character qualities. But hopefully Jacob has grown on you. Hopefully Israel has grown on you as you have seen the Lord working in his life. So God said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So remember, you had seen Jacob. He had fled from Esau, his brother. He had gone up. He had accumulated a family up in the land of Laban, his uncle. He had gotten wives and children and livestock, all these different things. And then the Lord told him, it's time to go back. It's time to go back where you were supposed to have been to begin with. And if things would have played out in a little bit more helpful manner, could have been, but the Lord had work in Jacob's life to do that took several years. So if you feel this morning perhaps that you are stuck spiritually, likely you have not spent like 30 years learning the same lesson, not having learned it yet. That's where Jacob is, and God is working through these circumstances to bring it about. But now, as he has left this land of Paddan Aram, and he has gone back, he's going back, he encounters his brother Esau, which is frightening, right? He came out with hundreds of men, we saw last week, and Jacob was frightened to the point where he's like, I got to manipulate again, right? This has been Jacob's MO for years and years. Time to manipulate. I need to make sure everything is working the way that I need it to work to get things favorable for me. My brother Esau tried to kill me years prior. If he sees me now, he's going to kill me. So maybe best case scenario is I walk away with half my family. So he sends him off and then starts sending gifts to him, trying to manipulate. And he's not trusting God's promise to take care of him. Right? So last week we saw it's good to trust God. You don't need to manipulate. And God has made promises to do what he will to ensure his people's purposes will come to pass. And we know the greatest purpose God has for his people is our sanctification, right? That is the greatest thing that God is pursuing in his people, conformity to the image of his son. And we've seen that in Jacob's life, and yet we see here as this episode is unfolding that Jacob's fears are unfounded, and God is faithful to him. So your big idea for the morning If you're so inclined to take a picture of it, write it down, memorize it if you like. I won't memorize it even though I wrote it. A new life for the believer. So a new life for the believer, whether it's Jacob, whether it is you, Christian, a new life for the believer calls for the putting away of things that belong to an old life, while the blessings of increasing maturity see gain in even the greatest losses. So here are the two types of burial that we will look at today. We will look at the putting away of things, the burying of things. We see that Jacob's family buries household gods. They bury idols, things that they had clung to both for a sense of prosperity, right? They had stuff. They had these golden or silver or precious metal statues they carried with them, but also out of superstition and pagan worship. Thinking, well, maybe we can hedge our bets that these gods might help us, right? If the Lord, the God of Isaac and Abraham, if he doesn't come through, then we can turn to the gods of Laban that he had in his tents. And the Lord tells Jacob, time to ditch him, time to get rid of him, bury him, put him away. So for the believer, that new life means that you will encounter things as your heart is excavated by the Lord that will need to be put away. And then the blessings of increasing maturity. So as you grow into that image, the conformity to the image of Christ, you will see that even in the greatest losses you experience, which this morning we will encounter death. We will encounter death of a matriarchal figure in Jacob's life. We will encounter death of a wife. That even in these circumstances, that if you're maturing and you're growing and you're seeing what is God doing, right? If God is faithful, He can be counted to be faithful to His purposes for me, that I know that even the greatest losses I encounter, that God is working good, right? We want to categorize good rightly. Good is not having a new car. Good is not having a new house. Good is not having these might be good things. But good, if we want to put a capital G on it, in your life, good is God working to accomplish His purpose of growing you from a place where you are brought from death to life, Christian. You are brought from death to life. And the Lord is working to deal with the things that pertain to that death, right? That we dwelt in at one point and changing us from the inside out. Even the greatest losses we encounter, the Lord will work to accomplish great gain. So running with a limp, right? Last week we saw Jacob's going back. And he's got a limp, and his family notices, hey, Dad's got a limp, right? Hubby's got a limp. What's going on here? And Jacob surely tells them what happened, that he met the Lord. He had this wrestling match, and so this is kind of a holy event, right? He's saying this is something profound has happened. And yet he's still having to deal with Esau, his brother. So chapter 33, verses 1 through 3, like I said, this is giving you the context of where we find ourselves going to chapter 35. Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him, right? This is the terrifying prospect. The idea of 400 men was an ancient Near Eastern way of saying this is an army. Okay, this is an army. This is a group of people, a group of men who are on a mission coming with a leader to do something. And for Jacob, he surely thought, this is it. Right? This is it. I'm done for. Right? I got kids. I've got wives. Don't have a lot of people fit for military service, so it's not going to go well for me. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two female servants. And he put the servants with their children in front, then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all, right? So he's ordering things. You see Jacob still struggling with this sense, I got to control, I've got to manipulate. And you think he put the servants with their children in front. So if you are this vicious man, if you're assuming that Esau is this vicious, bloodthirsty character, first thing you're going to see is, well, you've got servants. Jacob's probably not super concerned about the servants, but then you've got kids. And who comes after kids? Right? Who comes after kids? Pretty terrible people go after kids. So he's thinking, well, first of all, kids, we've got expendables and we've got the pitiables. Expendables and pitiables. Esau surely isn't going to go after them. And then we've got next in line, we have Leah with her children. So Leah is the lesser favored among the wives that he has accumulated, and then Rachel and Joseph last of all. So you have Rachel, the precious, precious wife that Jacob served 14 years for. You have Joseph, his favorite son. Last of all, he's saying, all right, if this is going to go south, keep them as far away from harm's way as possible. As far away as possible. He himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brothers. So he's flattering, right? He sent gifts, he's flattering, and he's like, I've got to figure this out. Can I trust God? And we saw last week you can. And we'll see how the Lord humbles Jacob here by taking care of him. Worry and manipulation was unnecessary. In view of God's promise to do as he had promised for Jacob, even in the presence of threatened murder and bizarre circumstances. So the bizarre circumstance we'll talk about in a second here, but when it comes to this threatened murder, he's terrified, he's frightened, but we know that God made a promise to him. Very specifically, he spoke to Jacob and he said, you're going to take this land, your sons will inherit this land, and my purposes are going to be worked out. All right, so this is spoken specifically to Jacob. Unique event in redemptive history. You think this might be sufficient for him to put his hope in, and he wrestles with this. And then something occurs here with Esau where it would, perhaps you've been in this spot where you've worried quite a while over something, and you felt like, I don't know if I can trust God to take care of it. I don't know if I can trust God to do what is best or what's right for me. So you worry and you worry and you worry and you worry, and then you get to the edge of the cliff, as it were, and you realize God has already taken care of it for you. Right? I've been there several times in my life. I'm a worrier, right? Many of you are warriors as well. It may not be easy for you to trust, and you might be thinking, like I do oftentimes, this is a hard circumstance. I don't know how it's going to work. And yet God comes through. This is what happens for Jacob with his brother Esau. So he's scared. All these people divide in certain ways. It says, but Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So this is a marked difference between the departure years prior. Because what's coming out of Esau's mouth toward his parents? I'm going to kill Jacob. I'm going to kill him. Right? This isn't just like, I'm going to punch him in the face. This is, I'm going to kill him. He stole my stuff. He stole the blessing from my father. He stole the rights of the firstborn from me. I'm going to kill him. It's going to be mine. And yet here, the Lord has so worked in this circumstance, worked in Esau's heart so that when Jacob meets Esau, none of the things Esau had threatened and none of the things Jacob had worried about come to pass. When Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, who are these with you? Jacob said, the children whom God has graciously given your servant. Right, so he still has this disposition thing like, I've got to flatter, maybe. And the servants drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise and her children drew near and bowed down. And last Joseph and Rachel drew near and they bowed down. Esau said, what do you mean by all this company that I'm met? Jacob answered, to find favor in the sight of my Lord. Right? And this is strange, right? Because we know that the promise came to Rebekah that the older will serve the younger. Right? So for Jacob to be calling Esau Lord here, this is a flipping of the script again. But Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. And I think, what's happened over this space of time? This man who had all this stuff ripped off goes to his brother who has all of these things now that he's accumulated. And the Lord has so worked so that Esau does not have this attitude toward his brother like, I've been broke, I've been dirt poor since the day you left, Jacob, and I'm going to kill you now. Jacob said, no, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand, for I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Please accept my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me and because I have enough. Thus he urged him, and he took it. Then Esau said, let us journey on our way, and I will go ahead of you. But Jacob said to him, my Lord knows that the children are frail and that the nursing flocks and herds are a care to me. If they are driven hard for one day, all the flocks will die. And my Lord pass on ahead of his servant, and I will lead on slowly at the pace of the livestock that are ahead of me and the pace of the children until I come to my Lord and Seir. So Esau said, let me leave with you some of the people who are with me. But he said, what need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir, but Jacob journeyed to Succoth. and built himself a house and made booths for his livestock. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. We'll get to Shechem in a second. Bad things happened there. On his way from Paddan Aram, and he camped before the city. And from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he bought for 100 pieces of money the piece of land in which he had pitched his tent. There he erected an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. So what we have going on here is, again, one of these humbling moments where Jacob is worried, he's manipulated, he has greased palms, he is flattered, and when it's all said and done, you look at how the Lord has worked in his great providence, and if you're Jacob, and if you're me, right, we look at these circumstances and think, I have not trusted. I have not trusted the God who has promised, has pledged himself to me that if a sparrow can eat food without working for it, that if a hair on my head is numbered, that I can trust him to do what is right, I can trust him to do what is good for me. It's a humbling moment for him. And so you see him getting there, and he makes this altar and says, El Elohe Israel, which means like this is the God of Israel, the God of Jacob. Right? It's a repetition. El and Elohe. This is the same word effectively twice over, saying this is the place where Jacob's God is to be remembered. So God has been faithful to him. This is what's leading up to the moment of Jacob being reminded of his name. And yet we see here another thing, another episode where the Lord has been kind to work, kind in his faithfulness. And this is a little disturbing, so I will warn you that what you're going to see here is probably one of the more disturbing episodes, frankly, in the Old Testament, what happens to Jacob's daughter. Now, Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the women of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he seized her and lay with her and humiliated her. And his soul was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this girl for my wife." All right, so this is a pretty significant episode. All right, a rape has occurred. A noble character with an ignoble character steps in, takes Jacob's daughter, and rape occurs. Now Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but his sons were with his livestock in the field. So Jacob held his peace until they came. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. The sons of Jacob had come in from the field as soon as they heard of it, and the men were indignant and very angry, because he had done an outrageous thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, for such a thing must not be done. But Hamor spoke with them, saying, "The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him to be his wife. Make marriages with us. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters for yourselves. You shall dwell with us, and the land shall be open to you. Dwell and trade in it, and get property in it." Shechem also said to her father and to her brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me I will give. Ask me for as great a bride price and gift as you will, and I will give whatever you say to me. Only give me the young woman to be my wife." So this is a serious thing, and what's being proposed now, okay, if you remember, why is it that you have Abraham's servant going to the country of Paddan Aram? Why is it that Jacob goes to Paddan Aram? It's because they were not to find a wife among the people of the land, right? These are the pagan peoples that God has warned, saying, don't seek a wife here. Don't seek to build a life with this land of idolatry and paganism. I need you to go to this place. We're going to set the priority, set this principle where you are going to keep things within the family, as it were, so that the God of your parents will be the same. The God of your mother, the God of your father will be the same. So they go, and this is where Jacob collects his wife, Rachel, and gets Leah in the process. This is where Rebekah hails from. And you have Shechem and Hamor here who are saying, "We got a deal for you. Here's the deal. We really like this Dinah, and we know that something awful has already occurred. So seeing as we already, made a pretty awful incursion against your honor in the sight of the people of the land, Why don't you just take our daughters? Why don't you do that? We'll take your daughters and we'll have a treaty and we'll have we'll have good parties together. We'll hang out together. And this is what will occur, thinking that somehow this is going to smooth things over after the daughter of Jacob is raped. Skipping ahead to verses 25 through 31, what happens is they concoct a plan where the men of the land will be circumcised, and as they're healing, they're going to go and slaughter them. Now, this is not a good plan. This is a hatched plan by some sons of Jacob, and you'll see here how the Lord is kind, bearing patiently in the midst of this murderous rage. On the third day when they were sore, so this is after the circumcision of the men of the land took place, two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and came against the city while it felt secure and killed all the males. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went away. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds, their donkeys, and whatever was in the city and in the field, all their wealth, all their little ones, and their wives, all that was in the houses, they captured and plundered. Right? This is a terrible decision, right? Because the instruction that Jacob had received was, go home, go home. And you think if you're Jacob, you're telling your kids, here's what we got to do. Keep a low profile. We're going to get home, and we're going to set up shop in the land that God has given to us. And then you have these indignant brothers who there is both a sense of righteous anger here, and yet the same type of manipulating, right? You think of Jacob's manipulations. You think Simeon and Levi here have this idea, hey, well, here's what we can do. We want to kill these guys. So let's put them in a vulnerable position. And then we'll go after him. So this is the deceitfulness of Jacob kind of coming through in his sons' lives. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me stink to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. My numbers are few, and if they gather themselves against me and attack me, I shall be destroyed, both I and my household. But they said, should he treat our sister like a prostitute? So this is a serious event, a significant event. And in all these different things, you think, all right, Esau coming after potentially Jacob. Like, okay, what's going to happen to Jacob here? God preserves him by giving a favorable disposition to his brother. And then you have this event where Jacob's like, what's going to happen? Like, you morons, what'd you do? You have any idea how many people are around us who are allies with the people of Shechem? Do you have any idea like how many people are there? And we've got a few people. You got like brothers who are younger than you. You've got siblings. You've got servants, flocks, whatever. We're on our way somewhere. These people live here. What have you done? And so you're thinking, if you're Jacob, how is it? How is it? Like, could this mess everything up? Could this mess everything up so that God's purposes are now been frustrated by the willful actions of his sons? And yet they're not. So we get to chapter 35. God says to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So when God is telling Jacob here, make an altar to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau, right? God has appeared to Jacob multiple times in his life to this point. But one of the thing that's highlighted here for him is to say, remember when you fled from Esau. He could have said, remember when you met me at Bethel at the first. Right? That's why Bethel is called Bethel. It means house of God, Beth-el. This is why it's called that. And so Jacob sets up this kind of crude altar at that point because he uses this little rock that he had slept on. Says, all right, well, this God is in this place. But God tells Jacob, you go back to Bethel and you make an altar to me, to the God who has preserved you in your fleeing. Make an altar to me because I've been faithful to you, Jacob, in the midst of the potential pursuit of your murderous brother. And of all the people of the land who have said, hey, this ain't good. We got to deal with Jacob and his family. What you need to do, Jacob, is you're going to go back to the place I met with you at first. And you remember, you build an altar there to me. Remember me who has been faithful to you even as you worried and you manipulated and you fled from your brother. You see what happens here, verse 5. As they journeyed, a terror from God fell upon the cities that were around them so that they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. Like you see now, God is working, where we have Esau's disposition and now the people of the land, where Jacob is thinking, what is going to happen now? They saw what my sons have done. This is it, right? We're finished. And yet Moses records here that a terror from God fell upon the cities. And this is one of those episodes where you think that when the people of Israel leave Egypt and they plunder the Egyptians, these Egyptians just give them their stuff, give them gold, give them jewelry, just get out of here. Like, why did this happen? How did this happen? Did this happen just because they felt like giving away their stuff? Did these people in the neighboring regions, did they say, hey, you know what? We're going to stay away from Jacob. It's the reason we like him. Instead, what it says here, what Moses says to us with clarity, is that a terror from God fell upon them. They were afraid. Whatever rational or irrational reason they could have justified it themselves, they were afraid because God had put it in their hearts to say, we're not going near Jacob. And you consider, how has God done this for him in the past? How has God done this for you? To accomplish his purposes. There's a dear brother in this room right now who's shared a story before about his parents serving as missionaries, where God has graciously protected their family, Bible smuggling, as though the Bibles didn't even exist in the sight of soldiers who were intending to drag them out and potentially kill them. And God is faithful. He takes care of his people. There are times where God takes care of his people by saying your course is over, but there are many circumstances where God's faithfulness sees you through circumstances, difficult circumstances. Like, how is this going to happen? And in all of it, what you can be confident in, is what Jacob could be confident in, as he is instructed to build this altar, is that God will take care of his promises, he will fulfill them, and his purposes will come to pass. Christian, you can rest in this. I can rest in this, right? When you're thinking at 4:30 in the morning, you wake up, you're like, oh, I went to bed last night hoping to forget about this, but I'm awake now, and I got to turn this paperwork in, or maybe there's somebody who is telling me, like, hey, your job might be on the line. Maybe a relative, a family member that you're at odds with. You think, I've got a birthday party to go to, and I know that there's going to be some real nuclear interaction going on there. You can rest. You don't need to worry. God is faithful. So here are the burials we're going to look at. Start with burying a promised life. And when I say promised life, here's what I mean. There are things that in our lives make promises to us. They're not usually verbal promises unless we're talking about people, but they're promises that are made. So think about what is most commonly viewed as a source of security. Okay? It's opening your app on your phone to go to your bank, check your balance. Okay? And when you do that, when you open it up and you look, you think, a promise is being made to me that I have this much security. Right? And if I had a little bit more, I'd be more secure. If I have less, I will be less secure. And this is true of different things that we encounter throughout our lives. Sometimes it's people who will make promises like, I'm going to bring you life. And if you put your trust in me, you put your confidence in me, you are going to find life. And this is, as I said earlier, something that's represented when you have Jacob's family taking the household gods of Laban with and saying, man, these things make promises. And just in case, the God of Abraham and Isaac, and now my husband, just in case he doesn't come through, I got to have a backup. And you see what happens. Starting in verse 1, we'll go through verse 7 this time. God said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household, and to all who are with him. Now, you got to see this moment. This is a profound moment for Jacob, where we have a moment of spiritual leadership that is being recorded for us that has heretofore not occurred. To this point, at least in our record of Jacob's life, he has not led his family. Right? He has manipulated, he has concocted ideas, but he hasn't led in this way. He said to his household and all who were with him, put away the foreign gods that are among you, and purify yourselves and change your garments. Then let us arise and go up to Bethel, so that I may make there an altar to the God who answers me in the day of my distress and has been with me wherever I have gone. Like this, what a moment for Jacob. What a moment for him to get to this point where throughout his life he has worried, he has manipulated, and now you have him coming to this point where he has seen God's faithfulness and it's kind of like finally been enough. It's like, I can trust. I've seen the people of the land have a terror that's unexplainable and irrational and under any other circumstance except that God has done this, right? And you have Esau, who's been favorable to him, even though he had threatened to murder him before. And Jacob has said, okay, it's enough. I can rest. I can trust. So ladies, it's time to put away the idols. They're not going to do you any good. Furthermore, recognize that this confidence in other things, this has tainted you. This has stained you. This has done you no good. So what we're going to do together as a family is we're going to ditch it. And we're going to symbolically wash ourselves to say no more. So they gave to Jacob all the foreign gods that they had. And the rings that were in their ears, Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree that was near Shechem. And as they journeyed, a terror from God fell upon the cities that were around them, so they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. And Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all the people who were with him. And there he built an altar and called the place El Bethel, because there God had revealed himself to him when he fled from his brother. So we have Bethel at first, right, means house of God. And now he says El Bethel, which is God at the house of God. It's like if you really want to make a point here in Hebrew poetry, Hebrew literature, you make a point by repeating something. And so just as you have El Elohe Israel, you have El Bethel. This is God at the house of God. Like if it's not enough for you to know this is the place God met me, it's saying like God really, really met me here. This is where it's at. And so you see, as I mentioned earlier this morning, just there's a significance. There's a significance, Christian, for you as you go throughout your life. And you see how God has been faithful. We don't put up altars now. We don't do this. What we do, though, is we remember, right? And in corporate worship, it's something we do. We remember together how God has worked. And primarily, we look at the cross of Christ, and we see the promises of God being fulfilled to redeem sinners. But then there are these small ways. And they might not seem like small ways at the time. It might seem like huge ways. But compared to the cross of Christ, it's a small way. But they are small moments where you might encounter the Lord working on your behalf. And you say, God has done something here that is unexplainable. Right? He has preserved me. He has protected me. And he is worthy of being remembered. He is worthy of being worshiped for his faithfulness to me, though I have worried, though I have been unfaithful to him. You imagine that's what's going through Jacob's mind here. It's going through his heart. It's like, man, I have been such a bad worshiper. I've been a bad worshiper. But it's time to change. So God calls his people to a life of wholehearted devotion to him, where idols of the heart are readily, though not easily, parted with. Now, I want to emphasize here this idea of not easily, right? There's a sense of readiness that the Christian person, just like Jacob, should have had at this point to say, we're not going to hold on to this stuff. But it's not easy, right? The things that matter to our hearts, the things that make promises to us of security and comfort and peace, these things are there for a reason, right? They're not there because they're just like they don't represent any sense of that. So if you have $500,000 sitting in your bank account right now, you might feel pretty secure. And so there's a promise that's made by that saying, okay, I can trust. There's a chunk of money here. There's a chunk of money. But as you think about what it is to have this sense of wholehearted devotion, it's represented in Jacob, it's represented in Christian obedience. It's to say, look, I can look at these things and I can say, it's not easy, but it's necessary. It's not easy, but it is worth it to examine your heart and think, what do I love in such a way that is obscuring my vision of a God who is faithful to his promises? What is it that I'm holding on to, like these ladies were holding on to the household gods of their father Laban? And I say, I need to put it down. Exodus 20, verses 1 through 3, very famous passage. God spoke all these words, right? So this is, the Lord is meeting Moses, and he is giving Moses these 2 tablets upon which are the 10 commandments. And this comes to the people through Moses. And this is the first thing on the list. Now we have our fighter verses for this week, right? We're going to memorize, and I'd encourage you, I will attempt to, along with you, in Deuteronomy, where God says, look, the best thing for you is to love me with all your heart. The best thing for you is that you should see me as your greatest treasure. And this is what we find in the first commandment. God spoke all these words saying, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. So this is what's starting off this decalogue, right? The 10 commandments to say, I've done this for you. Right? Now you think they've been delivered from the house of slavery in Egypt. But Christian, you're on this side of the cross of Christ. If your trust is in the righteousness of Jesus, you can look and say, God has delivered me from the bondage of sin. God has delivered me from my slavery to my own disobedience. So what's the response? You shall have no other gods before him. Nothing should be more precious to you than the God who has delivered you from so great a bondage. Nothing. Right? It's not easy. It's not easy to put these things away. It's not easy to bury them out in the backyard and say, I'm done with it, but it's necessary. Jeremiah 25, 1 through 7, you see how the people of Israel wrestle through this. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, right? Josiah was a righteous king, son not so much. That was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, which Jeremiah the prophet spoke to all the people of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem. For 23 years, in the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, to this day, the word of the Lord has come to me, and I have spoken persistently to you, but you have not listened. You have neither listened nor inclined your ears to hear, although the Lord persistently sent to you all his servants, the prophets, saying, turn now, every one of you, from his evil way and evil deeds, and dwell upon the land that the Lord has given to you and your fathers from of old and forever. Do not go after other gods to serve and worship them, or provoke me to anger with the work of your hands. That will do you no harm. You have not listened to me, declares the Lord, that you might provoke me to anger with the work of your hands to your own harm. Christian, it is going to do you no good. It will do me no good to hold on to things in such a way that says, I'm going to make sure I hedge my bets. I'm going to make sure that I'm just going to, this is worthy of my worship along with the Lord. It's going to do you no good. There's no good to be gained by that. It is best for you and for me to look at the Lord and say, you're worthy of my trust, which means that in moments where the distress comes upon you, disobedience sits there as this option for you, whatever that disobedience is, right? You can name any number of things that you might look to and say, this is worthy of my attention and my affection. God says, have no other gods before me. Don't trust in anything more than me. In Luke chapter 9, we have people who are coming to Jesus saying, I like what you have to say, right? This seems like good stuff. I've seen you do things. I've seen you heal people. I've seen you do these remarkable things. And so you seem like somebody worth following. Right? This is a popular notion even to this day. People look at Jesus and say, I like that, right? You just get on with Christmas time. People are like, oh, maybe I want to get spiritual, get religious. So I'm going to go to church because it seems like happy things happen when I go there and nice things happen to nice people. And people approach Jesus with that spirit. And here's what Luke records. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, I'll follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Ouch. To another he said, follow me. But he said, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. Jesus said to him, leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Yet another said, I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those of my home. Jesus said to him, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Christian, there is a priority here that we need to get that is not easily gotten, both culturally, within the church's culture, and in our own hearts. And here's the priority. It's to say, Jesus is always worth it. He is always worth more. It's never a good idea to say to Jesus the types of things that he is told by these different individuals. And to say like, no, you follow me. You follow him. And that's it. It means taking a cross up daily. It means seeing the work of crucifixion occur to the dearest idols of your heart. This is necessary because Jesus said, unless you do these things, unless you see your heart dealt with in this way, unless you give up your love for these other things in place of me, you can't be my disciple. Show up at church all you want, have a good Christmas time and feel good about yourself, but unless you're willing to see that the idols of your heart need to be dealt with so that there is no other God before him, you can't be Jesus' disciple. We move to promises of a buried life, and here's where we'll settle. All right, to verses 16 through 18 in Genesis 35. Then they journeyed from Bethel, and there was still some distance from Ephrath. Rachel went into labor, and she had hard labor. All right, now this isn't hard labor in the sense of like, oh, it was a difficult birth. This is a terminal birth. Right? This is maternal death that's going to occur. When her labor was at its hardest, the midwife said to her, do not fear, for you have another son. So he's trying to comfort her, thinking, what's going to make this worth it? Right? She's dying. So at least tell her, there's a son. There's a son. And as her soul was departing, for she was dying, she called his name Ben-Onim. But his father called him Benjamin. Now, there's significance in the naming here. There's deep significance in the naming because she is dying. Rachel is dying. This woman who was so precious to Jacob that he served for 14 years for her. She is dying and she sees this boy and she says, Ben-Oni, which is the son of my anguish, the son of my pain. And she's effectively telling Jacob, remember our son as the one who took my life. Whenever you look at him, remember I'm gone because of him. And then you see the redemption of Jacob's heart evident in what he calls his son. Because Jacob calls him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. This is my precious son. This is my beloved son. I'm not going to recognize him as the son of anguish. I'm not going to recognize him as the son of pain because I know a God who has been faithful to me. So here's what I can do. I can look at this most trying of circumstances, right? This is the most precious person in the entire world to Jacob. It's his wife, Rachel, and she is on the verge of death. And he says, here's what I'm going to remember. That the Lord took my wife from me. I will see this son as a blessing from God. So the new life given to God's people enables them to reckon the most painful moments as gifts given by God to accomplish his purposes. And that's what's happening here, right? Benjamin's going to be involved in the redemption of Joseph's whole story and his arc and the preservation of Jacob's family. This is going to happen. This is remarkable things working in the providence of God here. And at this point in Jacob's life, he is mature enough to look and to see that though the Lord takes something from him, he's not removing the greatest good. This is something that's occurring. It is hard. It is difficult. But maturity, spiritual maturity, means that you can reckon these painful moments as gifts given by God. Verses 9 through 15, rewinding a little bit, God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Paddan Aram and blessed him. And God said to him, your name is Jacob. No longer shall your name be called Jacob. So here's reiterating. And this is what's in Jacob's mind as his wife is dying. But Israel shall be your name. So he called his name Israel. And God said to him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall come from you, and kings shall come from your own body. The land that I gave to Abraham and Isaac I will give to you, and I will give the land to your offspring after you. Then God went up from him in the place where he had spoken with him. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he had spoken with him, a pillar of stone. He poured out a drink offering on it and poured oil on it. So Jacob called the name of the place where God had spoken with him Bethel. Right? He is consistent. He continues to look and sees that God is faithful to him. Christian, you have experienced hurt. You have experienced hardship. The longer you live, the more you accumulate. You've experienced loss, right? There are painful chapters, and maybe that chapter is like 1 page long, but it's an incredibly poignant difficulty that you look at and say, this was really, really hard. Maybe it's a long chapter. Maybe it's a long period of time. Maybe it's something that you have not been able to shake, but please rest assured, Christians, God has not written the story of your life. He's not written the pages of your life with an intent to harm you. Okay? This is very difficult to understand. The period of my life, good heavens, it was probably like almost 14 years ago now. One of the most difficult seasons of my entire life. I would have never made it through if I had not a confidence in the absolute, total sovereignty of God. Never. And I am thankful to God to this day that as I encounter a very hard chapter, that these things were built in place. They were built into my heart so that I might see incredible hardship and say, God is still God. He is still faithful. He is still to be trusted. And Christian, you would do well for yourself to take to heart those types of lessons so you can look back and consider the faithfulness of God, and you can understand going forward that something will happen to you, right? Something will happen that is awful, right? 10 out of 10 people will die. People you love will die. Will you regard those moments as a sign of God's disfavor? As though the death of somebody beloved is a sign that I'm to be angry at him. Son of my anguish, son of my pain. Or can I look at it and say, God is still worthy of being trusted? Son of my right hand, beloved. Peter says, beloved, don't be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. Christian, pain will come. It's written in. Jesus promised this, right? Jesus keeps his promises. He made this promise. In this world you will have what? Trouble. You will. It's not an option. You will have trouble. Fallen world stinks. He says, if this world hated me, it's going to hate you. Not a pleasant place to be. Christian, take heart. I have overcome the world. Not Christian, take heart. You're not going to have trouble. Christian, take heart. I've overcome the world. Peter says as much now to the church when he says, don't be surprised when difficult things happen, as though this is what's going on here? God doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, I can run away from this God who's faithless. Like, rejoice. Rejoice because there's something in this of communion with Christ. There's something in this of conformity to Christ's image that I can trust God is good and faithful in. I'm going to finish here in 2 Corinthians 11, 16 through 30. I'm just going to read this for you as you think about a man in Paul who was privileged in every way. He was culturally privileged. He was academically privileged, spiritually privileged in every conceivable way. And as he comes to Christ, as the Lord meets him and kicks him off his horse, the road to Damascus, and takes him for himself, here's how Paul, who had every reason in the world to be confident in himself and privileged, says to the church at Corinth, who wanted a privileged pastor, says, I repeat, that no one think me foolish, but even if you do accept me as a fool, so that I too may boast a little. So Paul's going to boast. What are you going to boast in, Paul? What I'm saying with this boastful confidence, I say not as the Lord would, but as a fool. Since many boast according to the flesh, I too will boast. For you gladly bear with fools, being wise yourselves. They're saying, look at all these people. They're acting a fool. They're acting like complete fools. Boasting in themselves as though their accomplishments, their attainments, their possessions are worthy of being honored. You bear it if someone makes slaves of you or devours you, or takes advantage of you, or puts on airs, or strikes you in the face. To my shame, I must say, we were too weak for that. But whatever anyone else dares to boast of, I'm speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast of that. So what are you going to boast in, Paul? Here's what he's going to boast in. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I'm a better one. He says, I'm talking like a madman with far greater labors. Now he starts kind of all these things, the pinnacle of achievements, saying, well, this is a sign of God's favor, right? It's a sign of God's, all these great privileges. And then he comes down the mountain and says, here's where you're going to find the faithfulness of God. Far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one. You just think, 5 times he gets beat with a whip, 39 times, bareback. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea, on frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. And apart from other things, there's the daily pressure on me of my anxiety for all the churches. Who's weak, and I'm not weak? Who's made to fall, and I'm not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. So here is where genuine spiritual maturity has shown itself, right? Paul can look at the different losses that he has had to endure and say, here's where I'm going to find my confidence. Is that God has been faithful in this. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. There's nothing in me here, right? I started this place where I could be confident in myself. And yet I've endured so much and I've seen in all of this that I'm weak and God is strong. God is faithful. So here's what I can do. I can boast in a God who has been faithful to me. Right? This is what Jacob has learned. This is why he builds these altars. He's like, God at the house of God. I've seen my wife die. I'm going to call my son, beloved son. I'm not going to remember her death as the occasion for his birth. I'm going to remember a God who's been faithful. Christian, this is what your spiritual maturity is to look like. You are to look at your life and see, God is pleased with you. Christian, God is pleased with you. You may do dumb things. You may act disobediently. You may be under his fatherly discipline at times, but he loves you. And it's good for you to bury idols. It's good for you to look at hard losses and say, he is worthy of worship. Right? This is what he does in liberating our hearts from a love for things apart from him. Worship team, please come out.